Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 8:30 here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, July the 4th, Sunday morning. I'm happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us. And it's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I've got the chat room open if anybody would like to go and sit in there. And I want to continue talking about male survivors of child sexual abuse. And we had started that last week, actually last weekend. And talked about it on Monday as well as Wednesday night, and then Friday night I missed my show because I was on another show, so sorry about that. But I was on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, and we had gone overtime, so I missed my show, so I might have to change the time on that one. But the issues surrounding male survivors of child sexual abuse are just huge. 1 in 6, pretty much the stats out there, the statistics, pretty much across the board, is that 1 out of 5 or 6 boys will be abused sexually under the age of 18, which could include the unwanted sexual touching, molestation, or, sexual abuse, right? So this is a huge problem, and for many men, it's just not something that they really want to deal with. They don't want to come forward quite often. They don't have the support systems that women quite often will have, friends who they can talk to. They quite often, if they do come forward, are looked at as if they could have prevented it, and that they're not really victims, and that they'll just have to deal with it on their own. Society really has to change the way they approach this situation, because of the problem that there's so many sick people out there molesting children and sexually abusing children. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys, pretty much that's the stats, are sexually abused under the age of 18. So that means, if you know 3 women, chances are 1 of you will have experienced some sort of child sexual abuse. If you know 6 men, probably 1 of you, or maybe more, will have experienced child sexual abuse. And this is just the facts. We can all pretend and deny and say that, there's no way, or that's not true, or whatever, but this is facts. This is actual facts, and you can check this out on any website that discusses and talks about child sexual abuse. And so it's a real problem, and I just want to talk about the male survivor because no one else really wants to, and nobody else, there's a few people talking about it, but, I just want to be one more person. So there we go. So we have been looking at this awesome article, and we'll continue on with that article that I found from sascwr.org, and I'll give you that link later as well. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and glad you can be here. This is topics of abuse are very sensitive, so if anyone is uncomfortable with the topics of child sexual abuse, then you need to turn the show off. You have to listen at your own discretion. It is entirely up to you what you listen to, and I cannot be responsible for that. So, you have to know what's comfortable for you to listen to, and then turn the show off if it makes you uncomfortable, because you would not be hurting my feelings, and it's better for you to be safe and keep yourself well, and not listen to something that you think is just going to make you uncomfortable. So I say that on every show because you have to listen at your own discretion. The topics of abuse just aren't talked about that much, and no one wants to face it, no one wants to deal with it, and no one wants to talk about it. But hey, there's a lot of people actually talking about it, and I'm just one of them. So, if you feel comfortable with the show, then you can listen. If you're under the age of 18, I ask that you have someone listen to the show with you, because the issues of safety for children really are huge. I fight to save children's lives every single day. So that's 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so, I can't stay up 24 hours a day, so, probably on average, 18 hours a day. So there we go. You need to keep yourself safe online, and you need to know what you're actually listening to and what you're getting into. You should have someone, an adult in your life, who's there for you and who cares about what you're doing online, to listen to this type of stuff with you, to make sure it's something that you should be listening to, and be very, very cautious what you're doing online. There's all kinds of great information for young people, how to stay safe online, internet safety for children, and child online safety. You just have to start typing into your browser, and you can bring up literally hundreds and hundreds of websites on how to keep yourself safe online, and you really have to do it. And your parents should be doing that for you and with you, and being a part of it, being a part of your life and a part of your world to help protect you. But if they're not, you can do that yourself, right? Because I know my parents did not encouraged that and were not there to help me. They were actually very abusive, and so this is the whole issue. I know that it can happen. People don't often, children don't often have good parents or good, caregivers who actually care what they're doing. But you can do that yourself by keeping yourself safe and help your friends stay safe too. So we'll get right on with the show here. This article is just, it's really good. It's very factual, and I like this. It's called Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse, and it's from http sascwr.org and then /resources. And that's how I brought this up. Then / resources / PDFs, and it'll bring you up to male survivors of sexual abuse. You can find that article. This article is really great. It gives the definitions of male sexual abuse, and it also talks about all these different myths surrounding it. You know what I mean? It says 1 in 5 males have experienced childhood sexual abuse. That's from www.malesurvivor.ca. And it says perpetrators of male sexual abuse can include parents, siblings, extended family members, family friends, dates, intimate partners, acquaintances, peers, and strangers. Anyone can be an abuser. That's just a fact. And, anyone can choose to abuse. It's actually a choice that they make. So, this is what the whole issue is. It could be family members. It could be intimate partner. It could be just some stranger. And so, it's absolutely horrible. And it's unfortunate that we can't, get something done in society to help people to stop abusing people. And that's exactly what by, bringing out and raising awareness, prevention, of this sort of thing, we will eventually make a difference. But it's going to take everyone to get involved. We're all going to have to get involved, one way or another, in our local communities, nationwide, and really start getting something done about this. This is absolutely unacceptable. And, of course, it's been going on since time began. But we can change this. If everybody would kind of spend a little bit of time working on it, we could change this, right? And, just short of putting a video camera, attaching a video camera to every single person that would alert, police if they were being attacked or sexually abused or abused in any way, we just can't do that. But what we have to do is set up within our own communities things that will actually, programs, put programs in place to help strengthen the family unit, to help strengthen relationships between people, and eventually weed out the abusers and possibly get them some help. And then there would be less abused, survivors, right? So then, eventually we could just weed this out. But it's going to take generation after generation. But we are working on it. There's so many groups out there working on it, right? So this is the thing. But we all need to get involved, and the more people getting involved, the better. Because then the only other people that will not be involved pretty much will be the abusers, and we can single them out, you know what I mean? And that's the whole issue. I think, it's too bad that we just can't single them all out right now, round them up and ship them off somewhere, but that's just how I feel about it. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So they say here, male sexual assault. Male sexual assault is defined as any non-consensual act of sexual coercion and or domination which threatens the physical and or psychological well-being of a man. And these acts involve a misuse of power and may or may not include or involve physical force. It says male sexual assault can occur in intimate relationships, dating situations, institutions, hate crime situations, prisons and whatnot, right? And among strangers. It says, here's some 10 facts about sexual abuse of males. We went through those. But it says up to 1 out of 6 men report having had unwanted direct sexual contact with an older person by the age of 16. And if we include non-contact sexual behavior, such as someone exposing him or herself to a child, up to 1 in 4 men report boyhood sexual victimization. See, so it's a major problem. On average, boys first experience sexual abuse at age 10, and the age range at which boys are first abused, however, is from infancy to late adolescence. And it says here boys are most commonly abused by males, between 50 and 75%. However, it is difficult to estimate the extent of abuse by females, since abuse by women is often covert, and also when a woman initiates sex with a boy, he is likely to consider it a sexual initiation and deny that it was abusive, even though he may suffer significant trauma from the experience. And it says common symptoms for sexually abused men include guilt, anxiety, depression, interpersonal isolation, shame, low self-esteem, self-destructive behavior, post-traumatic stress reactions, poor body imagery, sleep disturbance, nightmares, anorexia or bulimia, relational and or sexual dysfunction, and compulsion behavior like alcoholism, drug addiction, gambling, overeating, overspending, and sexual obsession or compulsion. And I mean, this is pretty much true for anyone who's a survivor of any kind of abuse, you know what I mean? But especially childhood sexual abuse, right? That is such a huge issue, and it's, you know, I know survivors of childhood sexual abuse. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual molestation. So I know, you know, what some of these people, you know, I have an idea what they're going through. It's absolutely horrible. And the issue for men is even worse because women tend to gather in groups and, you know, will find a friend to talk to quite often and are a lot more comfortable opening up about their emotions and the way that they feel. Whereas men's emotions have always been told as, you know, because boys, you know, when they're growing up, they're told, oh, you're a big boy. You can take it. Don't cry. Boys don't cry. And, you know, you're not hurt, right? These are standard kind of things that people will say to their boys to make them tough and make them, you know, mold them and shape them into the men that we have on the planet here today. And the whole issue is it's just absolutely disgraceful because men have feelings too. And they have, you know, I mean, men think differently than women. Women think differently than men. But you cannot ignore the fact that men have feelings too. And they have needs and wants, and they have, you know, they need to be protected as children too. And not just, you know, made to be this super tough person just to ignore their feelings. Because what happens later on is they self-destruct. There's nobody to talk to. They're not getting help. And then, you know, a person can easily become overwhelmed and self-destruct, you know, or destroy everything around them, including their families and, you know what I mean, their whole lives, right? Because they don't have the ability to deal with the emotions that are going on within their minds and their self, you know. So that's why this is such a huge issue, and I just want people to know, you know, if you're a man and you're listening to this show, there is help out there, and there's lots of people who are willing to help, and there's lots of men who have been in the same boat who did not want to come forward and did not want to try to get any help, but you know, once they do, they realize that hey, there's no shame in coming forward to get help, and the shame really belongs to the abuser, the guilt belongs to the abuser, not the victim, not the survivor. It's never a child's fault. And never ever. And it's never a person who's been assaulted sexually. It's never their fault. The other person is making a choice to do what they did. They made the choice to abuse. So abusers are always at fault. They have the choice to not do it. And so a lot of times people take on this guilt, you know, or take on the shame and, you know, some sort of really self-worthlessness and feeling very low. And it's unfortunate because the actual abuser is the one who should be taking that on. You know what I mean? We did not do the actual abusing, so why are we taking on that guilt? Why are we taking on that shame? And why are we taking on those bad feelings when actually they belong to the abuser, not us? And so that's why I want men, you know, if you're listening to this show, to make sure that you understand that and that who cares what people think? You know what I mean? If people in my life think differently about me because I reach out and get help for my survivor issues, then they don't, you know, if they think that there's something wrong with me because I would reach out and they're not supportive, I don't need them in my life. They can just buzz off and go somewhere else because I'm moving on with my life. And people, you know, if they're not supportive, they don't belong in your life anyway. And that's a fact. Life is hard enough without, you know, if you've been abused as a child, really, and then you continue to allow people to abuse you as an adult, basically, that as an adult, we make the choices of who we allow in our life, you know, who we will actually allow to be around us and to spend time with us. And so we have to, as adults, make that decision for ourselves, what kind of people we're going to allow to be around us. And if these people are just hurting us instead of helping us and making us feel worse or just don't care, then they don't really have business being around you. And that's how I am in my life. You know, I cut out just about everybody who was not supportive and change those people out, thank God, with a whole lot of people who do care. And these people I count my family, really, because they're more supportive than my own family. Obviously, my family was very dysfunctional and abusive. So, you know, I can't expect them to be there for me in that department because they're not reaching out to get help. They just think everything was great and that it's okay to bash your kid's head in and, you know, completely destroy your children's life. They just think that's all right. So they don't, you know, they're not supportive, and I don't really like to have them around me all that much. So I have a lot of people in my life who care about me on a day-to-day basis, and they talk to me every day and ask me how I'm doing, and they're there for me. So I try to, you know, I do my best to try to be there for them. And that's what people need in their lives, not a bunch of losers who think that they should be allowed to just injure you more or make you feel worse than you already did because of the abuse that you suffered. It's absolutely ridiculous to allow people to stay in our lives out of some sense of what loyalty or something because this person's always been there. Well, if they're not treating you right, they need to be gone out of your life, I mean, that's just your decision you have to make. But the whole issue is you need to find supportive people who can help you through this, whether it's one friend or group support, people who are going to be there to support you and who really do care about you. You know what I mean? That's the whole issue. And there are people out there that do care. I found a whole bunch of them as I started reaching out myself. I had no idea that many people would reach back to me with all these hands to grab a hold of my hands and pull me along and say, you can do it. We're behind you, and we're backing you up, and we're your friend, and if there's anything we can do, let us know. And I mean, I have, literally hundreds and hundreds of friends who care about me, whereas before, I didn't have anyone in my life except for my sweetheart, my partner, who does care about me, and so without him, really, I would have had no one who would actually, really want me to have a good life and care about how I was feeling and how I was doing, and growing up abused, right? It's very, very hard. So, I just decided to replace all the people who were not supportive and who were actually abusive with no one. And then as I started to reach out, all these hands came back to me. So that's why I'm saying, please reach out and get some help. Talk to somebody. Make sure you do talk to somebody, and don't just suffer in silence and allow yourself to be destroyed by the abuse that you went through. That's just not right. And that's what was happening to me until I was 41. And at the age of 41, I finally, made the decision to start fighting to live instead of fighting to die. And so that's the whole issue, right? We have to make these choices for ourselves and be determined, to get some help. And especially for men, right? It's so hard for them because they're not used to having to rely on anyone. They're not used to having to have these feelings and let people know that they actually have feelings. And that's unfortunate because men have feelings too. And that's what's, that's unfortunate that they are encouraged to not allow themselves to have feelings. That's just not right at all. And so, we just know that society's way of doing things and the way they think is pretty messed up most of the time. So it says here, perpetrators tend to be males who consider themselves heterosexual and are most likely to be known but unrelated to the victims. So this is another fact about child sexual abusers. And challenges for male survivors. This is kind of, we actually were reading through this, and they said, a male who has experienced abuse often questions his sexuality, particularly if the perpetrator was male. If he identifies as homosexual, he can have feelings of self-loathing attached to his sexuality. And that's just the whole thing. A lot of childhood sexual abuse really messes with it doesn't matter who the victim is, whether it's a girl or a boy. It really does mess with your mind. And especially for men who think then that maybe they had homosexual tendencies, when actually in truth they didn't, but because of the abuse they question their own sexuality. And I mean, this can happen, right? And so, that's the whole issue. It's best, we have to know ourselves and really take a good look at ourselves. And I mean, if you have homosexual tendencies, well, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if you didn't, and then you were abused as a child, but you think that maybe you might have had homosexual tendencies and that's what caused the abuse, that's actually false. Because there's not. I'm not homophobic. So if a person is homosexual and they have homosexual tendencies, well, good for them. But the whole issue is that if they're comfortable with their sexuality, that's the important thing, right? Everybody has to be comfortable with who they are and identify themselves with their own sexuality, right? And so, whether they're male or female or bi or whatever. So that's the whole issue, right? A lot of times men who experience childhood sexual abuse think, well, if I didn't have homosexual tendencies, this would have never happened. They kind of place the blame on them. So men will often take the blame again for the whole thing by taking on that role that's saying, well, maybe if I didn't have those homosexual tendencies, this wouldn't happen. That is not the truth, because abusers choose to abuse. Abusers are the ones that make the choice to do what they do. It's not the victim's fault. They just pick on whoever they think they can get their hands on. So, abusers are doing what they do because they choose to do it. And quite often it's because they're mentally sick. There's psychologically something wrong with the abuser that makes them do what they do. But they still do what they do. They are guilty of it. So that's the whole issue. And if they are guilty and found guilty, well, they're guilty. And, that's the whole issue. It doesn't have anything to do with the victim, really. It's all about what the abuser is choosing to do and who they choose to do it to. You know what I mean? That's the problem. It's not the victim's fault. And that's why I just, if anybody actually will study this stuff out, there's lots and lots of good information out there on the whole psyche behind the abuser and the whole psyche behind the survivor and the victim, right? So it's very important if you're going to try to heal, to actually read up on that stuff so that you can see why you're thinking the way that you do and what the abuser was thinking when he was doing that or she was doing that, because women abuse too. Anyone can be an abuser. Children can be abusers. They can bully and they can sexually abuse other children. It's not uncommon, and that's the whole issue, right? Anyone can be an abuser. It's just something that they choose to do. So that's really unfortunate for the other person who's the victim, right, and then has to become a survivor. And so that's why it's so important to reach out and get some help. It's nothing to be ashamed of. They are the ones that should be ashamed of themselves for doing what they did. And we should just get some help and learn how to deal with what happened and learn how to move on with our lives. We had a guest on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, Arnie Alberts, and he has a book called Burnt Cookies, A Quest for Closure. And he is a male victim of childhood sexual abuse by a coach in high school. And this guy, he's a great writer, first of all. Burnt Cookies, A Quest for Closure is his book. It's his story, and he wrote it. It's a great book. I read it, and I love it, and I want to read it again. You can find it you can get it different places, but you can check his website out at www.arny, A-R-N-Y, Alberts, ALBERTS.com. And you can go to his website and get the link to get his book if you want to check that out. It's really worth reading, especially for the male survivors, right? Because he's out there. He's a voice for the male survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And the case went to court with a whole bunch of other boys who had gone through the same thing that he did. And of course, they were adults when it went to court. But they won, and I'm so happy for him because he's actually being very proactive, and he's like, look, it almost destroyed him. It could have destroyed him in his life, and that's the whole issue, right? You don't want that to happen to you. So there's Arnie Alberts, John Harrison in England. John Harrison is a survivor of child abuse, and he's a male survivor, and he's also very busy and very proactive trying to help stop child sexual abuse, right? And you can check out his stuff. He's Be Safe First, and I'll see if I can find a link here. Be Safe First. I believe that's the link. John Harrison. But if you just type in your browser John Harrison, it will probably come up. He is an author. He speaks at different rallies and whatnot in the UK, and he's working all the time to try to get the laws changed and get things done for victims of childhood sexual abuse and other abuse, So he's an awesome guy, and I think he's just awesome for doing what he's doing. There's lots of people out there who are men, who are standing up and saying, no, we did not deserve this, and, we want to help other men who might not want to come forward to know that, hey, it's not your fault and that you did not deserve that. So that's the whole issue. There's a lot of, I have all kinds of information and resources and stuff. If anybody needs any kind of info and just not sure how to find it, I mean, I'll be more than willing to try to help you find it if I don't have it myself. So you can contact me on Blog Talk Radio here or Facebook, different places like that. And I'm usually online every day checking my messages and whatnot. So just get a hold of me if I can help you find some resources. This is very important to me. It's something that sits really heavy with me. Child abuse, period, of any kind sits extremely heavy with me. So I know that there's so many survivors out there. And I walk down the street and I count, 6 men, and I think one out of those men, sadly, or more, is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And I count the women, 1 in 3, I look around my office and I see all these women, and I'm like, 1 out of 3 of these people here, out of the 50 or 80 people here, have been sexually abused under the age of 18, and it just breaks my heart because most of them will not talk about it. They will not get help. But you have to be ready at the point when you're ready to get help. But just make sure that you do find someone to talk to, even if it's anonymously by group support if you don't want to go forward with your name and all that. A lot of times there's online group support where you don't even have to give your real name, and you can stay and remain anonymous, which is really cool. So, if you need some information or if I could help you find anything, let me know. And so it says here, cultural norms that define masculinity often restrict males' ability to disclose sexual abuse and create a mistaken belief that males are immune to sexual victimization. And these cultural norms minimize a male survivor's trauma and often deny him the right to heal. It says physical force is not essential for an unwanted sexual act to be considered assault or abuse, and the concept may be due to threats, coercion, or from effects of substance abuse like date rape, drugs, right? And that's from the Men's Project. And male survivors must battle myths about male sexual victimization, including that males cannot be sexually abused or victimized, sexual abuse turns a boy or a youth gay, sexually abused boys inevitably become sexually abusive men. See, these are myths. That's just not true at all. Males are less traumatized by sexual abuse than females. That's not true. Boys and males can say no to abuse if violence is not used. That is not true. Those are all myths, And that's adapted from Gartner, Betrayed as Boys, 1999. And so they give their resources here for this information. This is a great article. Childhood sexual abuse is the most prevalent form of male sexual abuse. However, sexual assault does occur to male adults as well. And this is it's very sad, but it does happen. Now, characteristics observed in male sexual abuse victims, we'll just read on through here. We have a few minutes left. Denial of vulnerability, difficulty recognizing that what happened was sexual abuse, high need for control in interactions with others. They may appear stubborn and rigid for control in interactions with others, and frequently engage in power struggles or seem passive, codependent, and conforming. Both are protection from feelings of vulnerability. And it says confusion regarding sexual orientation. Orientation is exhibited in many ways. Some men claim heterosexuality but are sexual with other men. Some homosexual men question their orientation and wonder how they might be different and had they not been abused. And other men may not engage in any sexual behaviors with males or females and are unable to determine their sexual orientation. It says confusion of emotional needs with sex. It says needs for nurturance may be identified as sexual. Many needs may have been met through the sexual abuse, and sex continues to be viewed as the only way to be cared for. Real relationships with other men and women are often seen as threatening, and sexual behavior may actually be one of the few ways to relate superficially and still have some needs met. So societal norms encourage men to equate sexual prowess with personal value and discourage direct expression of emotional needs. See, so it's a real problem. Some men become Don Juans or give the impression they are super studs as a way of proving to themselves and the world that they are not gay or weak because of their victimization histories. And gender shame, confusion and anxiety regarding masculine identity, extremely uncomfortable around other men, does not like to be touched by men and often avoids situations where he may be seen unclothed. Because he does not feel part of the group, he is often isolated with a few male friends. Shame is especially powerful regarding feelings about masculinity. Real men don't get abused. That's what someone might think. They can protect themselves. Internalized male models are shaming or non-existent. May exhibit more feminine characteristics as an attempt to separate from negative masculine image or to avoid identifying with the male abuser. Multiple compulsive behaviors, sex, food, chemicals, and work are examples of common compulsive behaviors used to satisfy an internal drive to continually push oneself to avoid feeling pain and to meet dependency needs, but is not productive or helpful. And then they talk about physical and emotional symptoms. Hypertension and frequent chest pains, recurring dreams or nightmares of being chased or attacked, choked or stabbed, difficulty urinating in public restrooms, depression and anxiety. It can cause all kinds of problems. I know with myself, being sexually molested as a child, I had a lot of problems that I still kind of probably do because of it. So that's the whole issue. It is very, very hard on people, and make sure that you do get some help. We have about a minute left. The rest of this article talks about pattern of victimization of self and others, boundary transparency, chaotic relationships, poorly defined sense of self, and coping, and it just finishes up with that. So you can take a look at that yourself at http://sascwr.org/resources/PDFs, and you can take a look at that for yourself. Child abuse, male survivors, of, right? So sexual and child abuse male survivors of. So that's the article. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and please check our website out at www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And also, we'll be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio Monday night. Elizabeth Roberts-Brawley, the Southern Regional Director, and myself will be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers here on Blog Talk Radio. Excuse me. And also, I'll be on Monday morning with one child abuse survivor to another 6 a.m., and that's on my show at 6 o'clock in the morning Mountain Standard Time. So have a great day, everybody. Happy 4th of July to all my friends in the States. I'm from the United States as well, born and raised, but I live in Canada. Happy 4th of July to you all. Have a great and wonderful day. Be safe and take care of yourselves. If you need something, get a hold of me, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.